All right, a very good morning to all. I'm back with the third session in the series for patent agent exam preparation. We started it a couple of weeks back, wherein we had Siddharth who joined us for an interesting session. He's the topper, a theory topper for 23 examination. Then we had my colleague Hemangi last week, who was quite, I would say, motivational, although very young, and she shared her experience with us actually in the second session. Here we are in the third session, a bit on, I would say, a different theme actually, and a difficult theme to discuss. But then to discuss this, I have very, I would say, uh, um talented, as well as someone who is a great orator, as well as I have seen her grow as a student, from a student to a faculty to a researcher, and then she also joined us for patent agent exam preparation a couple of years back. She couldn't crack it in 2022, and I also want to let you know that yes, she has cracked the exam in 23. And but then, like, when we thought of this particular theme, it was very difficult to have someone who wants to share their failure experiences. The reason being that generally, like, we are always here to celebrate the success, but then, like, we are generally in an ecosystem jahan pe failures ka discussion is considered as something which is not good actually. But then I thought, for the sake of students who are preparing patent agent exam preparation, it would be really good if someone can share the experiences with respect to the failure as well, because at the end, we as students have to avoid these traps. So welcome, Niyamat, for the session.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so Niyamat, of course, I know you since almost 6 years now. I've seen you as a student, as a professor, and as a researcher as well. You've been meeting in between, in either in Nagpur or Mumbai. Did you ever feel that you'd be live with me on the YouTube live?
Honestly, never. And I think this journey also has been very interesting. Like you rightly mentioned, when I think I saw you for the first time, that is again when you were in our college and you had come for a lecture. Since then on, I had no idea I would be even considering giving the exam for patent agent and then cracking it. So a lot of credit goes to you also, sir. Thank
Yeah,
you.
but then thanks for mentioning that. But then how did you come to patent agent? Why did you decide to go for patent agent?
So I think very early on, as a student, we did not have much exposure to intellectual property. We didn't have it in our syllabus that much, although the syllabus has changed now. Once I think, got into academics, I started teaching, I met with certain colleagues of mine, and that's when I got to know and got interested with intellectual property, understanding more about IPR. And at that time, honestly, I had just heard that patent agent is something that is difficult to do, and very few people are patent agents in the country. That is all that I knew about it. I think COVID happened, that allowed me an opportunity to explore this more. First, I went online, I explored a few courses on the Swayam portal. I realized that's something I really find interesting. And just by a random coincidence, I came across your course when you were running it for the first time. And I realized that why not give it a shot? And thing is that even while I was studying through it, I kept contemplating, is it something that I really want to do? Or is it something that's going to be on the side? But I really enjoyed studying it. Considering it's an act, patent act, I enjoyed studying it. And I think that's why I continued it.
So there was always that confusion whether you should actually go for it or not actually. And so I mean, then how did it actually move in a positive direction then?
I think in the beginning, when you're not aware why you're doing it, it's difficult. Maybe that is also the reason that first time around, you're not that committed or devoted to even giving the exam. Because maybe for me, I had a backing I'm a pharmacist. I did have a PhD on the line. I was a assistant professor. So I did have all those things backing me. So maybe I wasn't looking at a world in IP. But now, very confidently, I can say that there is so much to explore in IP because of my recent interest in all of it. So I feel that when you know what the goal is, when the goal is right in front of you, it's better for you, it's easier for you to prepare.
Yes, so let's go back to 22 when you actually started for the preparation, and I think you were actually preparing 2020 exam
Right.
pre-COVID actually, right? So how was that journey? And I mean, could you keep that momentum throughout, because there were so many things happening around? The exam got postponed. It happened almost after 2 years and all actually.
So actually, I think yes, that was one of the things that were difficult, keeping the momentum. Initially, when I started, it was out of interest, and there was so much to study, so much to cover. So I was very devoted and committed to studying it. And like I mentioned, I did the Swayam 2 courses, patent drafting and understanding the Patent Act, to get a better idea of what the subject is all about, since I was completely raw about it. However, because the exam did not come, the exam did not come in the next year, it came the next to next year. So that kind of gave it a lag period. I got busy with preparing for my PhD, I got busy with other things. So I think when the exam actually was announced, sometime in May, I understand. So around January, February, when we again started preparing, I felt at the back of my mind that I already know a lot of things. Maybe I don't need to stress on it too much. And I think that was one of the problems which kind of led to me not cracking the exam.
Okay, okay. But then now, if when you have appeared for two exams actually, 22 and 23, do you feel 22 was much easier compared to 23?
Yes.
And that was actually the ideal opportunity to crack the exam?
Yes. And actually, I remember, so the 22 exam I gave in Nagpur, the 23 one I gave in Bombay. So anybody who hails from Nagpur knows that May in Nagpur is scorching hot. And it's the exam is in two sets. So you have to prepare yourself for being in an exam hall the whole day. That, along with the nervousness of cracking the exam, there were so many applicants. And literally, after paper one, when you go for paper two, the hall is half.
Okay, okay.
So it was very interesting to see that so many people do not appear for patent drafting. Either they're not prepared for it, or they perhaps feel that they haven't studied enough for it, or whatever that reason could be. I will say that that made me a little confident that, okay, less number of people, but time management, I couldn't manage my time. I felt a little overconfident because I felt the drafting was my forte. I'll be able to do it. But it did not work out. Even when I got out of the exam, I wasn't sure. I didn't think I had done it.
Okay, okay. And were you in that ecosystem actually? So like, when you're preparing for 4 or 5 months, did you find any difference in terms of ecosystem in 22 and 23? In terms of like, of course, patent engineering exam is more about group studies, or like, studying with others actually. You can't be isolated actually, like, and prepare for that. So how was it actually? And did it really impact your preparation actually?
I think one thing is, if I'm not wrong, I managed to attend all classes, barring a couple of classes here and there. Even the first time around, and that's something as a discipline I like to practice. If I've taken on the challenge of giving the patent agent exam, I wanted to be very thorough that I've attended all classes. And then we had the online videos as a backing. I had my whole set of notes ready. I could have simply taken the 22 notes, but I made fresh notes for 23. And what I also did was, for the 23 time, because I was more committed, I didn't want to give it a third slot. I wanted to finish it in that much time only. I had printed out the Patent Act with all the important ones and kept it in front of me. So if I don't get the time to every day study it, at least in front of me. So I knew, okay, section 16 is so and so, or 136 is so. So even if it's not something that I day-to-day practice, it's something that's in front of me. Invariably, I think of it.
Okay, okay. So just for your information, the session is live on live via Pharmaliterate YouTube channel, and all the participants can ask their questions through live chat that is available on the YouTube ads. Okay, so Niyamat, I understand you're a researcher actually, and you're more technical person. Is it really difficult to uh, understand the legal language or the act that we read, especially the Patent Act and the rule connected with that?
I wouldn't say it's difficult. It would be difficult for anybody who is from a non-IP background.
Yep.
If somebody comes from engineering, computers, or pharmacy. Rather, I would say with pharmacy, it's a little easier because we are still exposed to this idea of IPR. And I would say in the last 1 year, 1 to 2 years, the idea of intellectual property in India, the idea of startup India has really made it very easy for all of us to understand. And also has kind of clarified the importance of why we need to study IPR or rather go into this domain. Like
Yes.
even as you mentioned, yes, as researchers, our first goal becomes publishing research papers. But now I see that there is a little shift in small ways of people wanting to first make their products and patent them and then understand that, okay, publishing can come later. So there is that shift.
Or did you ever feel the a bit of conflict? Because when I think as a patent agent, the researcher's mindset to look at patents is different. But then, of course, you are a researcher, and when you think of from a other side now as a patent agent, or like at that point of time probably as a patent agent aspirant, was there any kind of conflict? No, as a researcher, so we want this, but then okay, legally this is the thing which is very crucial or important, which probably a scientist or a researcher may not be in a position to understand.
I think yes, the commercialization is not something that researchers understand. What I take it, what I see around me. Patents is more about putting it on the CV of the number of patents you filed or the number of patents that have been granted. Because many a times for researchers, the story ends there. The translation to bringing it into the market to commercialize it, because that is a whole different ball game of documentation and a lot of other things, which honestly researchers aren't aware of.
Okay, so it made a bit as well, I would say, conflict when you actually prepare for the examination as such. I
Yes, because yeah, if you do wonder that if you want to become a patent agent, how are you going to earn out of it? It is a challenge.
Okay, I have a very interesting question for you from Bhakti. She's
Okay.
asking you uh, what not to do, or what the top mistakes you did in 22, which probably you maybe rectified in 23. Maybe two or three things if you can share with us.
One thing that I can very strongly recommend is that it's a new language you're learning. Intellectual property is not something that we talk on a daily basis. We don't talk of sections and acts unless you're in the law field, I would say. So be in touch with it. Be in touch with what you're studying, which is what I try to do the next time around. I made sure that the acts, the sections was something I had pinned them on my desktop,
Okay.
Patent Act link. So I could immediately go to it. So one thing that did was I did not practice enough. I should have drafted many, many more different types of patents to have a better learning and grasping on it. Because even while I was giving the exam, it's from 2 to 5 p.m. By 4 o'clock, I was exhausted because I didn't want to spend one full hour of writing. And then by the I was just yes. What one more thing also that I learned the next time was that again, thanks to Sir really stressing on it, in drafting, it's very important that you stick to the way it has been drafted rather than what is drafted in it. That is something I really focused on and I practiced. I made sure that I had a like acronym fit in my head, title, objective, or whatever it is. But more than the content, I was more concerned that I fit it in the number of lines and what all parameters are required.
On a lighter note, the question for you is: do you still remember all that? Since now you are not in the actually practice.
I would say the sections and all I remember quite a bit.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, yeah, some bit and small things. But like I said, it requires practice. I've removed it off my wall. I should have left it on.
Yes, yes. So I also have a question from Dr. Prabhakaran. He's asking you, for the first time, were you really confident before going to the exam that you would crack it in the first time?
I felt so. Yes.
You were confident. So
Yeah.
I
I
would call it
felt
as
that.
for me, you were overconfident in that point of time, I would
Yeah.
say. Yes,
One
yes.
can say, like you said, I mean, I started in 2020. So having 2 years of, I felt that maybe 2 years would be enough, but it doesn't mean those 2 years doesn't mean that every single day I was studying it. So
Yeah, in fact, I remember, like, speaking to one of my students, and because the recordings that we have, that we provide currently, are from 2020,
yeah.
and all of them have one common student asking questions, and that is Niyamat actually. And one of the students had actually called me, and she asked me, Vijay sir, Niyamat was your student earlier, and she's in this batch as well. Hasn't she cracked the exam? And I was like, no, she didn't crack the exam. And then she said, but I mean, it was more about the understanding or conceptual part. You are maybe very clear about those, and that's where the very smart question used to come actually, so I remember this particular incident. So from one of the students in 23, I won't name because she's a batchmate actually.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so I have one thing to ask you is about the paper one preparation actually, did you feel stressed out, or maybe it would be difficult to remember the section numbers, the rule numbers, or the forms and the fees part?
Um, I think in the sections and rules, again, maybe I'm referring to your classes a lot, but they have really helped. I remember you telling us that if you're learning the sections numbers, don't remember the rules numbers because you'll confuse the two. And that would happen. So I ensured that sections I was very, very confident with. I remember the numbers, I remember what they stood for. However, for paper one, the application based questions, that's where I was a little nervous. And that's where I think we would make mistakes because you have to be very, very clear if you've understood. So a very simple thing like pattern of addition and divisional applications. Something that I think commonly every second person makes a mistake because it's a very short section if you read it actually. But
Hmm.
there are so many application based questions on those.
Yes,
There's
yes.
so many different application based questions. And that is where the confusion comes in.
Yes, very, very true, actually. And that's something I would say is a real challenge for a fresher, because they generally go with the, I would say, the flow, or trying to remember both sections and rule numbers, and it just kind of overcomplicates the thing as such, so let's discuss about paper two now, more about I would say the drafting part. You have been through research paper writing earlier, but then how was it different for patent drafting, and was it a real challenge actually?
Honestly, for me, and I've heard this otherwise, but for me, drafting was not that much of a challenge. I all I had to do was remember the sequence in which all the different points are supposed to be put. That is something that I had to take some time to remember. But otherwise, abstract has to be 150 words, or title is not more than 15 words, or the background has to include all of these things. So remembering all of that was a little tricky, but actually drafting it was not very difficult, in my opinion. I didn't feel it's very difficult. One thing I was a little concerned about was, which I think I'm sure most of us are, about the claims drafting, because that becomes the main story,
Yeah.
one who's narrating the story. So over there again, I understood that instead of trying to be very creative, trying to be very, very expansive about what you want to cover, not required. If they ask you for one independent and one dependent,
Go with that.
if you kept to that, you started with the, you started with and, you've done those things. You put your commas and full stops. I think that's what was more important, is what I understand.
I have an interesting question here from Bhavna. Of course, you had one failure in 22. And while preparing, how was it for the preparation for 23? Because I'm pretty confident that throughout your life you would have never failed actually. Like, this was the first time I would say you had a failure, but it was a good failure actually. Like, so how was it in 23? Because we know that when we repeat few things, it becomes really challenging as such, reading the same stuff, maybe attending the same classes from Vijay sir, I would say, the same sessions, I would say. So how was it, and how actually, like, so the precise question herein is actually, is were you afraid of making mistakes again in 23? And was your morale or confidence a bit shaken because you already had a failure?
Number one, the confidence was a bit shaken. Yes. Number two, I told myself I'm not giving a third attempt. Iske baad I'm done. So I had told myself this is it. I am not going to give a third attempt. So I think that is what really motivated me. And I also remember feeling different. The first time when I was walking for the exam, I was nervous. I was still very new. I felt everybody around me knows what they're doing. They're very confident during the exam. I'm such a newbie over here. The second time, I was like, I'm doing it. I went with that mindset. I am clearing it. I am doing it. But then I cleared, when I finished with paper one, I was like, this did not go. The first paper was much easier. I mean, this is not what I'd expected. And because, again, I don't know if this happens in other competitive exams, but in patent agent, they have these multiple right answers.
Yep.
Very scary type of questions. So you don't know how right or wrong you are. So after paper one, I was a little, yes, concerned. I did not know, because I was like, okay, this is it. I won't continue. And somehow I had a feeling after paper two that I've done it. And I think I remember talking to sir also that it looks good this time.
Yeah, but still you are not confident of specifically the paper one, I believe, and that's where you scored a bit
Yeah.
lesser as well.
Yes,
year.
yes.
Yeah. So again, you are those rarest of the rare species who scored higher in the second paper compared to the first one. As I have a
Yeah.
question from Bhakti here. It was about your experience of viva. Actually, of course, this has been discussed in I mean, with everyone. We are discussing this, as well as we are putting it on the YouTube channel as well. What were the questions that were asked? But actual experience when you went to patent office. I think you appeared in Mumbai, right?
Correct.
So how was that entire experience of maybe like half an hour or 1 hour at the patent office?
Okay, very interesting experience, because it's not something I've ever experienced before. All your school and college vivas fail in comparison. And maybe for me, I did not have an interview ever in my life. So this would have been the first. Well, we entered the patent office. It was a very streamlined system. We were all given our numbers. We had to wait in line till our number came, and then we went. So I was interviewed by three interviewers, and one of them was virtual. And again, I will commend sir for that, because we were trained. We had mock sessions with sir already, and I think 70%, 60% questions were the same. The way that you introduce yourself, they see how confident you are. Accordingly, whatever you give them, and that is true for, I think, any interview anywhere. All the information that I'm giving out, they're just going to pick on those and go ahead from there. As soon as I said that I'm from the pharma domain, they asked me about formulations. As soon as I told them that I am developing a formulation, they asked me, what if XYZ formulation comes, what will you do? As soon as they saw that I was okay, confident with this, they asked me something totally random. So they played like that. And I think above everything, they check your confidence. Because even if I could not answer a couple of questions, I did get a remark from one of them that, Niyama, this is not exactly what we were asking, but I appreciate the effort. So when an interviewer tells you that, you feel like, okay, you must have done something right.
Yeah. So for all those viewers who are watching this live, What Niyamat mentioned is she was never interviewed. I would like to mention here in is that she got her first job without being getting interviewed as such. But then she was also lying when she said she never got interviewed because I had taken her mock viva. I still remember she was in a car and probably traveling from Mumbai to Navi Mumbai. And while traveling, she had appeared for the mock viva, and I had got really nice responses from the participants actually, because that was also a platform wherein all 50-60 students who were part of the viva, they got to know each other, basically each other's background, as well as how we are doing professionally as well. Of course, in second time as well, you're not much confident to clear that, because that's how I remember when we had a word actually, how did you manage that time between the exam and when we actually got the list for people eligible for viva? Was time to do kind of everything you forgot, or you were still in touch with the subject?
Sorry, after giving the exam and before the result came out?
Before the list of viva, the students eligible for viva came out, that 40 days gap, probably almost everyone is not in touch with the subject. Was it the same case with you?
Um, yes, I think I was preparing a little bit. I didn't want to be completely out of touch with my subject. So I had also bought a book regarding patent agent. Although I didn't study much from it, but I had the comfort that I have a book through which I can just refer to. However, I'll recommend everyone. The website is the best place to go because it is updated. Books can have several mistakes, and you'll only understand their mistakes once you actually know what the right answer is.
Absolutely. And that's the real problem, because I remember I was in Delhi yesterday, and at a conference, I got a gentleman from Bangalore who runs the patent agent exam classes. And we happened to speak for a few minutes, and he mentioned about a couple of books, or a couple of, I would say, and the kind of mistakes. And he himself cleared the exam and started with the classes actually. And he mentioned that before I knew this, I always thought it was correct. There was no one to clear or correct that actually. That's the real challenge with the books. Yeah.
And
Now,
also,
yeah,
sorry, just to add to it, that maybe the book that one book that I referred, they tried to give you a simpler version of every section.
yeah,
But I still feel that there is a manual of patent practice and procedures, which is
true.
doing exactly that. So if you really read it 10 times, you will understand. It's all about learning a new language, legal language. That's all.
Yes. So Niyamat, it's been now, I think, almost 4 months, 3 or 4 months. You cleared the exam actually. Have you got your registration number?
I have applied for it. I think I have got I haven't checked because recently it had to come out, so I've not checked it. I've yet to check it.
Oh, so that's what my question is. Is it helping you now? Of course, since you are in research, as well as what are your plans once you become patent teaching?
Helping, I would say it is too nascent a stage right now, but I have had colleagues from different places who have like, oh, so now that you're a patent agent, tell us we want to file this and how do we do it. So I like that okay,
You get some kind of recognition for that.
Yes, you get some recognition. At my own workspace also, there have been few students, juniors who are interested. I mean, I think when I was preparing the second time, I remember two students coming to me that, and they must have come in at probably January, February, saying that, ma'am, really, do you think that we can do it? I said, it's never too late, but you have to be really committed to it. In 3 months also, in fact, I gave your reference to them that 3-4 months maybe ho sakta hai, but then you have to really commit yourselves to it.
Yeah, and I had the session by Himangi last week actually, and who had really cleared it in 3 months. And Niyamat, she had got 193 marks. That
Fantastic,
was
fantastic.
amazing actually. Okay, there is one question. What was your strategy to practice? Maybe for the I would say exam actually, or after covering all the concepts as such. I'll have a sub question for this actually, like did the mock test that we conduct help you in terms of understanding the pattern as well as the kind of mindset, especially for paper one?
Definitely. I don't think usually what happens, because we give so many entrance exams also, CSIR, etc. Sometimes you're blown away with, oh my God, what sort of a question this is. That didn't happen. I was quite comfortable with the pattern of, let's say, a single multiple choice or multiple choice answers. So I knew exactly what I was going to get because we were so thoroughly prepared. I knew what was in section A, section B. I knew how I had to manage my time also, because I had already given an exam once. I knew how to work with my time. So I was not prepared when it came to the question set.
In the 22 exam, had you managed your time properly, especially in the paper two, or did
No,
it impact?
no. That was one of the reasons that I knew that I had made a mistake. Because if I'm not wrong, I think we were given a mask. A mask was one of the patents that you were supposed to write about, versus some electronic device, either of the two.
Yep.
So most of the people I spoke to later on went for the mask, and I felt it would be more complicated, so I went for the electronic when I should have gone for the mask, because those people may finish much faster. So I made a wrong choice there, I felt. And second is that I spent too long just reading it. While what I should have done was, as soon as I know that this question, the last question, requires a lot of time because it's 30 marks.
Yep.
30 marks is a lot of, it's a big chunk. So for that, I should have given much more time. But I was just rushing at the end. If I had kind of already made a schema ready of so many lines, I'll have for titles, so many lines, I'll have for abstract, I would have done my work much faster, which I did the next time. I numbered all the lines because that's one important thing to do.
Yeah, and did you go with that 5, 10, 20, 30
Yeah.
pattern or 30,
Yeah.
20, 10, 5? Means 30 ka pehle attempt kiya, 20 ka, did you go in a reverse way?
No, I think I gave enough time. I finished off I went in the same.
5, 10, 5, 10, 20, 30. Okay, so this is one thing which I've been recommending actually for high scoring as such, and especially in paper two, is that go with the 30, 20, 10, 5 sequence. Because as you rightly said, 30 mark is a not a good chunk. It's actually a make or break for paper two actually. Because
Correct.
if you are not in a position to attempt the 30 mark question properly, then probably you are just attempting 75 marks and getting 50 out of 75. It's a really tough task as such, like that is something which is crucial as such. And what about time management in paper one? Is there anything like that required?
Again, if I'm not wrong, in paper one also, it is 1, 2, and 3. The
Yep.
last set has got more marks.
Yep.
Yeah, so I did that. Because obviously in the question paper you get to take it with you, so you can always make your whatever you think is the right answer. So spend more time for those questions. It's a very simple strategy where you're getting more marks, like you rightly mentioned. You work with those, and I knew that application-based questions require more time.
Yes.
The ones that are absolutely direct, you can come back to those later.
Very true. Very true. Actually.
Also,
And
I just wanted to mention that maybe for me, I have never worked with. I want so many marks. I should spend so much time. I've never worked with a competitive exam. I think just GPAT before this, and GPAT was a simple MCQ, MCQ set. But that was again when you were a student fresh out of degree. Maybe a lot of times I've always worked with trying to build in proper content of what you're writing, or trying to be very precise with the answers. But all of this doesn't matter here. Here matters how smart you are with your time, how smart you are with which questions you're picking and attempting and which you're leaving. It's a different way of looking at the exam is what I'm trying to get at.
As you mentioned, like, while preparing for GPAT probably, or during your UG and PG, you had that habit of writing. And
Mm,
I'm confident that once you finish your PG, you become a teacher, you become a researcher. You don't have that habit of writing as such. So
true.
was it a issue actually while in a write? Because in paper one, so that's absolutely fine. I mean, you don't have to write much. But in paper two, was it a issue that we don't have that practice of writing? Because I think we can type very easily, but not. It's difficult to write.
That is true. So the first time that was an issue for me, like I mentioned, but I think because some failures helped. So because I had that in mind, I was more prepared the second time. That I knew that I have to give so much time for writing. I was practicing a little. Like I said, why it's important to practice drafting, you get a hang of spending so much time writing the background or the objective or the summary, things like that.
Yeah. Okay, students, I'm open for the questions. You can put the questions in the chat box. Niyamat is still with us, taking all those questions actually, and we must appreciate her efforts, because generally, as I said, people are not willing to discuss their mistakes or accept their mistakes as well, in general as such. So, Niyamat, what are your future plans? You want to continue with the IP or patent agent thing as such?
Actually, I do. I'm going to leave the avenues open for me. I shall hopefully finish my PhD next year, and I'm really looking at exploring the world of intellectual property, valuation, commercialization, drafting. I do have a good hand with writing, so I think I could be an asset.
Absolutely. And I also have a suggestion for you, that because I've seen you since so many years, actually, I think you must also teach actually for the patent agent exam preparation.
Okay.
Because honestly speaking, when you teach, your learning is almost 100-fold as such. Because when you're facing the students, that point of time, any kind of bouncer can come. And unless you're very much clear about the concepts, unless you know it really well, it is very difficult to teach us. And I know you are a great orator, you are a great teacher as well. We had your sessions earlier, so I think that is one avenue for sure you must explore of conducting patent agent exam classes.
Thank you, sir. Your vote of confidence matters.
But then just do it in collaboration.
Of course.
Yeah.
I will say this, that you I think asked a question in the middle, that uh, was it difficult for me or different? How was it different for me confidence wise the next time? So I remember early on when I started sitting for your classes again the second time, a part of me did feel that, oh my God, now I can't give a wrong answer because I've had so much studying to do. So every time that happened, I felt like, have I really improved? Am I really studying? But what it was interesting was that because there were a whole different set of people who were attending the classes, the questions were different.
Yes.
And that also gave me confidence that, okay, I do have a baseline understanding. I do know better about XYZ things. So it boosts your confidence. At the same time, it tells you that everybody has their own pace and journey of studying and learning.
Okay, okay. So that's so true actually, and I think when for with every batch, like as you said, we have new students, and the perspectives to look at the things from different domains are really different. That's how we each of us actually learn. And as an individual, actually, honestly speaking, if you ask me, so what I did in 22, probably 23 and 24, I mean, I can see improvement in myself, because that's also through my practice actually, because there were many things which we never did as such. We never filed a patent application, we never went through the divisional process, we never went through a pre-grant opposition, we never went through a review petition actually, and that's happening now. And I feel like I'm in a position to like kind of put it in the right context when we have those chapters as such.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I got a couple of questions for you. One is from Bhakti. I found that in many a times answer is very simple, but question is tricky. So I mean, it's like a bouncer kind of stuff, like but then was that the case specifically in 22? kahin tha, or of course it's very difficult to remember, but then you remember anything like that?
Honestly, I don't remember. I really can't.
Yeah.
But things like I remember that questions related to timelines get tricky.
Yep. Very true. And I remember,
January and then 12 months or 18 months. And so something that you really need to practice. Again, Sir had provided those notes. But more than that, I would say make your own notes.
yes, true, true. That's what I've been also recommending to everyone.
Yeah.
I remember that tricky question. It was not a tricky question, a tricky answer that I had put in one of the mock tests wherein I mentioned 29th
29,
February
yes.
2021. And many of the students, I actually, including you, I believe you had put that answer as such, like, so these kind of things do
Yeah.
happen. Okay, we also have a question from Dr. Prabhakaran again. Would you advise to go for highlighting the text? Like, for example, in the patent draft, you write title, then you have the field of the invention, background, objective, summary, detailed description, example. Do you suggest to maybe underline or highlight that specific part when you write the answers? I think that's allowed, but did you do that?
Yeah. So I think what I felt was you know how you write, you know what your handwriting is like. Hopefully, if you got good handwriting, great. But if you do not have very good handwriting, then do the things like really underlining those headings, making sure that you're really stressing and writing those headings very clearly. Because, like I mentioned at the beginning, more than what is going in the field of the invention, the examiner needs to see that you've written the title, the field, the background, the objective, the summary, right? So those headings with one line gap, with sticking to the word limit, doing all of that's more important. So yes, I would say underlining is fine.
Yeah, so but you're not allowed to use multiple colors pen actually, as well as the I think the question was also about did you actually underline or highlight in the question paper as well? It's
Oh,
not allowed, but then I
it's
think
not, yes. Although we do get to take the question paper with us, as a practice, I would say do not use any kind of pen on the question paper. Pencil is fine because
yeah,
it's a government exam number one, and just like any other exam, why bring more stress? It's already a stressful situation. So the minimum that you write, it's better.
okay, okay. So the stress reminds me of few things, and we have this question on that line actually, because especially in the last few days, like when you are preparing for last 2 or 3 weeks, and wherein kind of Vijay sir has completed the classes, and you have to review actually or do revisions. The question from Parinita is that were there any specific differences in terms of the differences in terms of revision approach, maybe in 22 and 23?
There's one that I can think of. What I would like to do is, as a person, this is how I study. It's very important for me to finish the portion. I want to study everything. So I don't want to leave out anything. That's how I would like to study. As you come closer to the exam date, you realize that, for example, division and patent of addition and let's say anticipating, all of that is something I'm comfortable with. But compulsory licensing, I'm not comfortable with. However, questions can be asked on both. I would say that what you're comfortable with, please stress on that and make sure that you know it extremely well and do application based questions, all of it regarding that. Compulsory licensing, at least have a look over it so you know what it is. Actually, this is what I did during the viva also, because viva was something that you have no idea what they're going to ask. And for me, compulsory licensing is something that I would say 80 or 90% okay with. I had a feeling that they were asking me that only. So when I was preparing everything else, literally 10 minutes before the viva, I was like, let me just glance through this. And I read the 3 points of what it takes to get a compulsory license. And just when they finished asking me about formulations, Suddenly they ask me, so what is section 84? I'm like, okay. so so that happened. So you have to be prepared. But I would say when you go to closer the exam date, be absolutely sure of what you know. Penalties, do them thoroughly. Dates, do them thoroughly. Whatever you're comfortable with. Forms, do them really well.
The timelines and all,
Timelines, yeah.
as you said, right. So for the Viva thing, and I think we discussed it in both our previous sessions, I would like to repeat it here. What kind of questions are being asked, what panel you face is completely dependent, not on you as an individual, but your karma, more of your karma, actually, I would say. And that's how some of the students were really, I would say, like, maybe they had to face a panel wherein the marks given were comparatively lesser, and in few cases I would say people really got good marks at it, because that was the case with Siddharth, wherein he just got 37 marks in Viva. And I am like, in a year when actually they gave 50 marks out of 50 in Viva, most of the students got 45K aspas. That point of time, for him as a theory topper, he deserved much more actually, and ideally he would have been the air one, but then that's what happened with him as such, like, so okay. I'm still open, students. I'm still open for the question. Niyamat is with us as such. I also would like to tell a few things about Niyamat. She's also involved in a lot of social causes as such, right? Niyamat, we want you to tell a bit on that part. Of course, we know this is more for patent agent exam preparation, but what is that? What are those things wherein you are involved into?
Not that much, but currently I am engaged with an organization called New Acropolis in Bombay, and they have an eco volunteering department. So initially I was just going as a volunteer, but now I have decided to associate with them as a member. So they have taken up one project which they plan to really pursue in the next 6 months, and that is with mangroves, planting and taking care of mangroves. So Bombay being a coastal city on the coast, they have a lot of issue with the seawater, and with a lot of buildings coming up, it is really affecting the ecosystem over there, especially the mangroves, which in Airoli, Navi Mumbai area, Vikhroli area, they have a lot of issue with the mangroves because they're basically not taken care of. So what we are trying to do as a project is trying to save the mangroves, read up and understand more about the mangroves, and see how we can plant new mangroves. Similar to this, in Nagpur, we were doing entire tree plantation drive, again in the heart of Nagpur, between Booty Bori and 0 Mile, where near Vakeshwar village, we planted about 3,000 trees in collaboration with CHIP Nagpur, which is the foundation, Happy to Care Foundation, and the Maharashtra Forest Department.
Oh, wonderful. That's wonderful. And that's what I would say more karma is about, like, what you give to the society, what you give to the nature and to the entire ecosystem as such. Any last advice, Niyamat, for all the students who are watching you right here?
I really feel that confidence speaks a lot. At the end of the day, just a day before the exam, just 2 hours before the exam, everything they have studied, all of that you've done, everything, put it to one side. Go with like a clean slate, go with a committed mind, and really hope for the best. I honestly do believe, as a person, very strongly that Sir talks about karma. I say that the way you present yourself, the energy that you come with, that really makes a lot of difference. I mean, I would like to think that those three interviewers on that day was sitting so that they could give me a patent agent qualification. I don't know who they are. I probably will never meet them again. I choose to believe that they were for me at that moment. So
that's wonderful. And that's what comes as a really positive vibe to end this particular session. Thank you. Thank you so much, Niyamat. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's always a pleasure to have you on our Family platform, and we look forward to your support in future.